Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Upgrades. I'm Jeremy Knoll,
And I'm John Suarez.
and in this episode, we're going to be going over the Silverquill Statement deck from Commander 2021 that is headed up by Breena the Demagogue as the commander. So, this is the one that Steven played, and we talked a little bit earlier in the series of upgrades that there was one commander that maybe was outshined the rest of them, and I think it's Breena the Demagogue.
I agree.
It's a very good commander, and I think the commander itself might be just a little bit more powerful than the rest of them if you're playing them all out of the box. It was very difficult to get rid of. It built up really, really quickly, and it took two people out with commander damage. One of the cool things it does is it does encourage people to be aggressive, and because it is a political deck, it encourages them to be aggressive towards not you if you're playing it.
Yeah.
So there's some cool things in this deck. There's a lot of politics, a lot of, hey, I'm giving you incentive to do things to other people rather than me. You know, aim your removal there, do this, do that. But for upgrades, we are going to look at a few cards that are going to help with the like, hey, let me do my thing. You just go ahead and don't bother me. And the first couple there are ones that we actually both chose, and they're both kind of similar of effect. It's Norn's Annex and Sphere of Safety. So there's already a Ghostly Prison in the deck. Doubling, tripling up on those effects is never a bad idea.
Yeah, you definitely want to make sure that your opponents are attacking other players so that you're getting your trigger from your Breena.
Yeah,
This will just help make sure of that.
Yeah, it'll just make them go over there and attack them. Let me put some counters on here, and then I will definitely not kill you first as I lie through my teeth.
Definitely not.
Since you're not going to be having people attack you as much because you're going to be, encouraging them to attack other people other than you, one of the things I think would be really great in this deck is actually including Monarch, a mechanic that I think works really well with Commander. And a lot of people have talked about like, hey, for our local play group, we just start with the Monarch in the center, and then First Blood just gets it.
Yep.
So there's cool like ways that people play like that. So the first one I'm looking at is Court of Grace. It's one of the enchantments from Commander Legends, and it's 2 and 2 white. When it enters the battlefield, you become the Monarch, and then at the beginning of your upkeep, you either make a 1/1 Spirit token with flying if you're not the Monarch, or if you are the Monarch, you get a 4/4 white Angel creature token with flying instead. So helps you build up a big army if you maintain the Monarch, which you most likely will with this deck.
Yeah, I mean, you might, but at the same time, you may want to just give it away.
That's
the whole
true,
objective is to make sure that they're attacking each other. So introducing the Monarch and then purposefully losing it is a nice little play you can have up your sleeve. So
yeah, that is definitely another way to look at it. That is one way I have utilized it in some of my decks. Of I'm gonna make myself the Monarch so that somebody else takes it and then everybody else fights over it.
Exactly. So my next two are going to be +1/+1 counter oriented because Breena gives creatures +1/+1 counters, and there's some creatures in your deck that care about that. Also, being able to just give Breena, massive to be able to kill somebody with commander damage is another option. So those two cards are Cathar's Crusade. This is 3 colors, white enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield in your control, you put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. This is one of those kind of obnoxious +1/+1 counter cards, right? Like this card lets the game ends relatively quickly once this card's been in play.
Yeah, but it is obnoxious if you're the person with the Cathar's Crusade. You have to do all the upkeep.
You do.
Because it's a lot of dice, because it's not just evenly spread about. It's like, okay, I'm going to cast this creature, so all these ones get +1/+1, and this one gets +1. My next one, now this one has 2, this one has 3, the new one has 1, and so
you have to be the one to keep up with it.
Yeah.
And the other card, which goes really well with Cathar's Crusade, is Felar Retreat. 3 colors and a white enchantment with landfall. Whenever you play a land, you can either create a 2/2 cat beast token, or you can put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and they gain vigilance until end of turn. This is one of the newer cards. This was Zendikar Rising.
Zendikar Rising, yep.
I think this is going to be one of those white staple cards, kind of like Smothering Tithe. This is just every white deck is going to play lands, make blockers at worst. That's not a bad thing. So, and if you're abusing it, then this card can get out of hand really quickly.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one of the ones that I definitely would put very highly up in just about every white deck that's gonna, have you're gonna play lands,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that one's really great. Another one that I like that helps you to kind of keep a little bit of life up to date, is Cabal Council of Allocation, which is one that will put a little bit of heat on you, but it's nice to be able to tax everyone that couple of life whenever they play a non-creature spell. You get to drain them two, you gain two. So it's a card that I would definitely play in almost every black white deck.
It's a sweet one.
Yeah.
My next card is also still +1/+1 oriented, and that's Bassari's Lieutenant. It's a 3 colors and a white human knight, 3/4, has vigilance and protection from multicolored. And when Bassari's Lieutenant enters the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. And then when it or another creature you control dies, if it had a +1/+1 counter on it, you make a 2/2 white knight with vigilance.
Yeah.
So you're going to be putting +1/+1 counters on all of your creatures, ideally. So this is kind of your reassurance if somebody decides they want to wipe the board. You'll just end up with a ton of 2/2s instead.
Yeah. Yeah. Actual Bassari Planeswalker was very close to making my list as well. It was like
Yeah.
one of the last few that I was considering, just because it does give those +1/+1 counters, and
Mm-hmm.
then if you can get that ultimate off, it works really really well.
Yep.
But the Lieutenant is also just a really good choice for that deck. Another one that I like from again from Commander Legends is another new white card, Keeper of the Accord. This one is a little bit. It can work sometimes. Other times it's just gonna be a 3/4.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 3 and a white at the beginning of each opponent's end step. If they control more creatures than you, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. And if they have more lands than you, you can search your library for a basic planes, put it on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. So it's a catch up card if your opponents are starting to really power through faster than you, really ramp or get a bunch of creatures.
Mm-hmm.
But it's another one that I like, and I really want to see a bit more of it over the next several months. I want to give it a chance for about a year and see how it works in my decks. And if it's really underperforming, cut it. But for the most part, I think it'll be pretty decent most of
Yeah.
the time.
I think this is one of those, Wizards is trying to make white cards good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is going to do it. If you happen to be the white player on a pod of 3 or 2 other green players, this card's going to net you a bunch of lands because
Yeah.
you're always going to be
And
behind them.
and we can see that in some of the cards that are in this deck and some of the other Commander 2021
Mm-hmm.
cards that they're really trying to give white a little bit more. Scholarship Sponsor is one that I think is going to have an impact. There's the artifact that goes and gets you planes. So there's a bunch that they're really trying to make sure that white gets its day.
Yeah. My next addition is a top 10 artifact of basically every deck in Commander, and that is Swiftfoot Boots. 2 colorless, 1 to equip, creature gets hexproof and haste. I definitely want a way to protect Breena, right? That's my goal here is to make sure, hey, I don't want Breena to go anywhere. I want it to be around. I want it to have haste if it does get, killed or bounced or something beforehand. And this is just the best way of doing that.
Yeah. Again, just another one, as we've talked about in other upgrades episodes for this set, that it's kind of surprising that it's not in every deck. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm also okay with them taking out a quote unquote staple on occasion to make sure that you get other cool spells. So my next one cares about Breena also attacking and actually hitting, and that's Una's Blackguard. We've talked a little bit more about other putting +1/+1 counters on other creatures. This one rewards you for that by punishing your opponents. It's a very simple 1/1 for 1 and a black flyer. Each other rogue you control enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. Not as super relevant, but whenever a creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it deals combat damage to a player, that player discards a card. Is what we're really looking at here. So you're really going to be punishing them. Like, again, Breena's already pretty powerful because it's going to be forcing everybody to kind of attack each other. So getting another creature that's like, all right, I'm going to attack you. You also have to discard 2 cards.
Yeah.
So Really just trying to get that extra little bit to make your way to the head of the table there. My next one is another one that really cares about the +1/+1 counters, and that is Drana, Liberator of Malakir. And again, another one that I think I'm surprised doesn't see more play, but like in any deck that wants to be swinging that is in black, this is a great card.
Yeah.
It is 1 black, 2/3, flying first strike, super relevant. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on each attacking creature you control. So, if you played with this before, yeah, you know it deals the first strike damage first, and then you get the counter on all of your non-first strike creatures before they actually deal damage. So,
yeah,
very cool card.
All right, and my last card, I chose not only because it's a great card in Commander, but it's also being reprinted as a Mystical Archive card, which looks fantastic from Strixhaven, and that is Dispark. White, black, instant exile target permanent with mana value 4 or greater. This is just a great card, very, very efficient in Commander. There's going to be, most of the cards played are going to cost more than 4, right?
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of them hanging around, so.
Yeah, and you get that really cool Bolus art.
Yeah. Yeah, new Mystical Archives are super sweet, and I'm excited.
They are.
Hi, Malcolm. Got a little guest host here as Malcolm jumps up on me. He's also very excited about the Mystical Archives. He has no idea what I'm saying. But my last one is actually going to be another one that cares about +1/+1 counters, and I think it's going to be super relevant with Breena, and that is Abzan Battle Priest.
Mm-hmm.
This has appeared in a few decks, a few precons, I believe. Let me double check that, but I believe it's been in a couple. Nope, just Iconic Masters. That's unfortunate. I thought it had been in precons. But yeah, no, it's a great card because it gives your creatures with +1/+1 counters lifelink.
Yeah.
And just Breena's going to get really big really quick. And just being able to swing for, like 14 lifelink, going to set you way, way ahead. So
yeah. Outlast isn't really relevant. You're not going to put +1/+1 counter on the creature very often. It's really the static ability that it gives.
Yeah. The Outlast, maybe. But for the most part, if you're going to be kind of adding in the things that we're suggesting, the Drana, the Cathar's Crusade, stuff like that, the Felar Retreat, you're going to be able to get a +1/+1 counter on it by itself pretty easily with all those things. So,
yeah.
But yeah. That's all the ones that we would suggest adding in for now. Again, there's way more, but that's the one we're going over in for now. For ones that we would take out, there's only a few that kind of really stand out, and it's going to be a pick and choose kind of thing for your own tastes. Again, the first one for me is Boreas Charger, and it's just one that I haven't really been impressed with yet. As I said, I like to give things a little bit of time, try it out a couple times. I've tried it in one or two decks, and it's
yeah,
it's just okay.
Yeah, one card I'm not willing to give any time is Zapalta. This card has been printed. How many times has this card been printed now?
Right?
They just keep putting it into pre-constructed decks. 8 mana, bunch of keywords. It's so slow.
I get it for what was the 2020 deck that it was in? Cathril, right? Sure. I get it for that, because that cared about
keywords. Mm-hmm.
That cared about keywords, but it has been reprinted in, it was Rivals of Ixalan was where it came out, and it's been reprinted in Commander in 2019, Commander 2020, and now Commander 2021.
Yeah, that's just too many times.
It's whatever. It's a big dumb finisher. You can get other big dumb finishers.
Yes.
For me, my next one is Hunted Lamaso.
Yeah.
Again, another one that I've just I get it, trying to give your opponent things, and to try and hey, we're making friends here, so I'm going to give you a creature token with my big creature token, and your creature has, so it's whatever, it's fine. It's a 5/5 flyer for 4. Is I guess the biggest thing I can say about it.
Yeah, it's good rate, but I don't want to give my opponent stuff. Yeah. I chucked Sunscorched Regent out. There's just plenty of things you could be doing that are better than this. Just a random 5 mana 4/3 dragon, and whenever your opponent casts a spell, it gets a +1/+1 counter, and you gain a life. So you hope it gets big eventually, because they're going to keep playing spells. You're going to keep gaining a life here or there. But there's just things you can do that are better.
Yeah, for me, another one that I generally take out of decks when people send it to me. It hasn't been in a precon, but Debtor's Knell
Mm-hmm.
always seems pretty slow for it being at 7 mana and triggering at your upkeep.
Yeah.
So I've always been like, that one's
It's fallen
I'd
behind on the power creep.
yeah, it's a little bit behind the curve anymore. I could
Yeah.
see playing with it, but
Let
personally,
me tell you.
I would cut it.
Let me tell you. 10 or so years ago, that card was obnoxious.
Oh yeah, no, in EDH 10 years ago, that was absurdly good. It was really top tier stuff. But yeah, for now, with the way things have been pushed for Commander, it's just it's had its day,
Yeah.
and I think that day is kind of over now. So
So the last card I cut is another one of the politic cards because I think Breena is going to kind of do that on its own, and that's a Pendant of Prosperity. This comes into play. You give it to your opponent, and right now, a lot of us are playing webcam Magic. Don't want cards to go. I'm going to give them my opponent. I'm going to cut them from my deck immediately. But you pay 2 and draw a card, tap it and draw a card, and you can put a land from your hand into play. And then the owner of the pendant, whoever played it originally, draws a card and can also put a land into play. So, like, you give it to your opponent, hoping that they use it so that you also get the advantage. But I don't even want to have to depend on you to make that decision. I just want to be able to play my card and be able to do my thing. So,
yeah, I'm a little bit more okay with effects like that for webcam Magic because it's there's enough ways to be able to just a piece of scrap paper or a sticky note or infinite token or
yeah,
something
it's
like
not
that
impossible.
to be able to get that. I'm less inclined to do stuff that are like the Gonti style effects. For that kind of thing, like I'm usually fine with it because there are so many ways to do that with webcam Magic now with like with scrap paper, sticky notes, infinite tokens, things like that. It's pretty easy. It's like the Gonti style effects that are a little bit more difficult, and there are a couple of them in this deck that are new. I wouldn't consider taking them out quite yet, but they're like things that you probably would want to take out over that, and that's like the Cunning Rhetoric, because you
Sure.
exile the top card of their library,
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that.
Yep.
Yeah, and the one where less so is the Author of Shadows, which exiles all creatures from graveyards. So you can get one, but it's more difficult to like, hey, everybody, tell me every creature you have in your graveyard, so I can pick out the best one. So those ones are a little bit more difficult for me. I took Gonti out of like a lot of my decks when we started doing webcam Magic more often. So that's just me. But all right, so I think that is it for this deck. That is the Silverquill Statement deck for Commander 2021. As always, make sure to let us know what cards you would add in the comments below, and also make sure to like, share, and subscribe. For Jonathan Suarez, I'm Jeremy Knoll. Thanks for watching.